Students, can you hear me? Students, can you hear me? Just show me a thumbs up if you can. Okay. Now, if you open your chat box, all right, I have shared the books that are required for political science. I've already done that in the introductory lecture. But yesterday you did not know OP Goba, so I'm sharing the list of the books that are required. All right. Plus, yesterday, before the end of the lecture, I had given you certain page numbers from OP Goba to be read. But I think some of you had left the chat. All right. So I have typed it already and put it in the chat box. All right. That is only for J.S. Mill, liberal theory of state. Okay. So it will cover your social contract theory. Then it will cover your classical liberalism and welfare state concept. So J.S. Mill can be studied from O.P. Goba itself. All right. So people who were not there yesterday because you had exited, just go through the chat box. Okay. We'll start. All right. Because we have a lot to cover. Okay. Yesterday, I had spoken to you about J.S. Mill. Okay. John Stuart Mill. And I told you that when we come to John Stuart Mill, we consider him to be a transitional thinker. All right. Because he is the one person who basically brought the change from classical liberalism, absolute individualism, open market to proactive role of a state, welfare state concept. All right. That's why we consider him to be a transitional thinker. Very important because he gives a lot of importance to the concept of liberty. All right. His book is also called as On Liberty. Then I told you that he, as well as his father, were basically followers of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism we do not have in our syllabus, but you have to study it because you have to understand classical liberalism and to understand J.S. Mill. All right. So utilitarianism is associated with Jeremy Bentham. All right. He is one person who said that every human being is a slave to two sovereign masters. One is pleasure, one is pain. You do anything that is going to give you pleasure and you will do everything to avoid pain. All right. So basically, using this pain and pleasure concept, he said that greatest happiness of greatest number of people should be the aim, the goal of a public policy. All right. So because of this concept of greatest happiness of greatest number of people, wherein only pleasures, the quantity of pleasures, more pleasures, less pleasures, should be counted. So when you can actually measure quantity, he said you can measure it through philosophic calculus, because according to Jeremy Bentham, only quantity mattered, not quality of pleasures. As long as you have 10 ice creams, Jeremy Bentham felt you will be happy compared to 5 ice creams. So for Jeremy Bentham, pain and pleasure concept comes up, greatest happiness of greatest number of people comes up. Most important, quantity matters. All right, not quality. Quantity matters. And because quantity matters, he said it can be calculated, it can be measured through philosophic calculus. All right. John Stuart Mill wanted to bring about a change in utilitarianism. He felt it is too individualistic, it is too materialistic. All right. So he went on to revise it. While revising it, he absolutely changed the concept of utilitarianism, because J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill, also believes the same concept. Only difference he brought is he said, listen, yes, man's actions are going to be guided by pain and pleasure. You will do everything that gives you pleasure. You will do everything that you can do to avoid pain. But man being a thinking animal is different from a pig. All right, is it different from fool? So definitely man is not just only going to be materialistic and concentrate on quantity of pleasures, he will also concentrate on quality of pleasures. So J.S. Mill is a person who said not just quantity, even quality of pleasures is important. All right. A Socrates will be happy with lot of books, with intellectual pleasures. Certain people may be happy with going to the gym, certain people may be happy with reading. So human beings are capable of having intellectual and moral pleasures. So it's not just quantity that Jeremy Bentham talks about, quality of these pleasures are more important. Okay, so J.S. Mill, just remember, utilitarianism, he concentrates on quality of pleasures. All right. And now you cannot measure quality. You cannot have a weighing scale to measure quality. So that's the reason why philosophic calculus of Jeremy Bentham becomes unapproachable or unattainable here, especially with J.S. Mill. So J.S. Mill, just remember, quality of pleasures matter. All right. That's why he said it is better to be a man dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. It's better to be a Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. To satisfy a man who's a thinking animal, to satisfy Socrates who has reasons, of course, it's going to be different compared to what will give satisfaction to a pig or a fool. So, quality of pleasures matter. All right. So, that is what is the revision that J.S. Mill brought about in utilitarianism. Then I spoke to you about his concept of liberty. He gives a lot of importance to concept of liberty. Okay, liberty, he focuses on both liberty of thought and expressions as well as liberty of conduct. So when I was teaching you conduct, we came to this concept. Over himself and over his body, man is sovereign. So conduct of a man has been divided into two categories. He says one is self-regarding actions. The word itself says self-regarding action. It means self. The actions of a person which affect himself are self-regarding actions. Okay. Other regarding actions are the one which affect the other people. That means it affects the community also. All right. So in other regarding actions, J.S. Mill says state can intervene, but he makes an exception. He makes an exception. What is that exception? See here. The state can also intervene in self-regarding actions, the actions which are affecting himself, if it was thought to be important to avoid any injuries that a man can do to himself. For example, man, if he's trying to cross a bridge which is dangerous, the state can prevent him, because while crossing while crossing the bridge, he may self-harm, the bridge may collapse, he may lose his life. So even if it is his self-regarding action, his decision to cross the bridge, still, if it is going to prove to be dangerous for the life of a person, the state can intervene in self-regarding actions too. So that's the reason why he was criticized by Barker, saying, look, J.S. Mill is a prophet of empty liberty, because Mill understands that self-regarding actions are going to be very limited. Man is a social animal. He's always going to be in contact with people. So his actions are definitely going to have positive or negative effect on somebody or the other in a society. So J.S. Mill understood this concept, and that's why he understood that self-regarding actions of a man, only actions which only affect himself, are going to be very limited. All right. And other regarding actions wherein state intervention is allowed has wider scope for state intervention. That's why Mill was criticized by Barker, that Mill creates a wide scope for state intervention in man's liberty and emerges as a prophet of empty liberty, meaning you're not trying to protect liberty of an individual alone by self-regarding actions. You're actually allowing, giving a way or right open, or way of right to open, so that the state can come and start interfering in your other regarding actions, which are more in number compared to self-regarding actions. So now we are going to continue after this. Okay, class, till now you have understood. I've given you a small revision of what I taught you yesterday. Shall I continue with the next part? Okay. Okay, next one. Okay, this is a very important concept. Like I told you, his concept of liberty is very important. He gives a lot of importance to liberty. But, but he said liberty were of two forms. First was liberty of thought and expressions, is what we're going to be talking about now. And liberty of conduct. Conduct is a self-regarding action and other regarding action, because they are conduct. All right. But now we are going to be talking about his freedom of speech and expression. So it is a famous quote of his: majority isn't right in silencing the minority, just like it wouldn't be right for a single person to suppress the majority. Hence, if all but one person has a difference of opinion, majority should listen to that person. Simplistically meaning, freedom of speech and expression is very important. So in his theory of liberty, freedom of speech and expression is considered as important freedom, Man should have freedom to act according to his ideas and to form association for better articulation of ideas. See, because man has freedom of speech and expression, we can talk, we can communicate, all right? And because we can communicate, then we can act, all right? That is what sets us different from animals. And that's the reason why he says nobody, majority isn't right in silencing the minority. Just because 10 people have a particular opinion and 2 people have a different opinion does not mean 10 people are right. All right, he says, listen, give importance to the opinion of the 2 people in minority also, because they may also have something worthwhile to say. All right, so that's the reason why he says, when a single person cannot suppress a majority, same way a majority cannot suppress one person. Basically meaning everybody has a right to express his or her opinion. Whether it is right or wrong will be decided. Now how will you decide whether a expression or whether a particular thought is right or wrong? He says, go back to Socrates, go back to Plato. Plato spoke about the concept of dialectics. I told you the Republic is in form of dialectics, that is dialogue form. Mill is using the same concept. He says, how will you come to know what opinion is right or what is wrong? He says, by using this concept of Socrates' dialectics. Dialectic meaning debate, discussions with each other, and felt that freedom of speech and expression is necessary to understand truth, to end unfair customs and traditions, as majority projected itself as a controller of social opinion. See, generally what happens is when majority of a people uphold a particular belief system for a very long period of time, it becomes a custom. Nobody questions it. All right. So that's the reason why J.S. Mill said, listen, when I'm giving you liberty, or when you talk about liberty of an individual, it's not just about the conduct of individual, it's also about the freedom given to him to express his opinions, and that opinions should be respected. Just because majority people support a particular opinion does not make it true, and just because a minority supports another opinion because of less number of people does not make that opinion wrong. So he says, to decide whether something is right or wrong, to avoid social tyranny. What is social tyranny? Rule, the majority people telling you to obey something just because majority of people are blindly following it. So he says, no, that is not right. It is necessary to give a person an opportunity to speak. If that person is right, it is an opportunity to correct himself. All right. On the contrary, if the person is wrong, he can be silenced. So what is he trying to tell you? He says, listen, if 10 people are saying something and 2 people are saying something different, give a right, give liberty to all 12 of them to talk. All right. When all 12 of them talk, that will be called as dialectics, debating, discussions. Okay. Then either of the two things will happen. If a person, anybody from out of the 12, 10 majority, 2 minority, if any one of them, their opinion is right, because of discussions and debate, all 12 of the people will agree on the same thing. There will be no problems further, all right, because the opinion has been accepted. But it may happen that when you are discussing, all right, and a person may be proven wrong, if his opinions are proven wrong, because he's been given freedom to speak, freedom to express himself, freedom to debate, freedom to discuss openly, if his opinion is wrong, he himself will be silenced, because he'll realize by debating, by discussing, that my opinion was wrong. So he will change himself. So basic concept is that freedom of speech and expression should be given to everybody. You should not be obedient of something just because majority people follow it. Discuss. Everybody, each one of us has a freedom of right to freedom of speech and expression. You should express yourself, whatever you're thinking, whatever your belief system. Have an open conversation, have dialectics, debate, discuss. So what will happen when you debate and discuss? If you are right, it will be proven in front of everybody that you are right or your opinion is right. If you are wrong, you will yourself realize in front of everybody that you are wrong, and it gives you an opportunity to change your opinion. That's why he says it is necessary to give a person an opportunity to speak. If that person is right, then it is an opportunity to correct himself. But on the contrary, if that person is wrong, he will be silenced. All right. So freedom of speech and expression is very important. That is one of the most important liberties that J.S. Mill speaks about. Okay. He says freedom of speech and expression is a precondition for democracy. Man shall not be forced to conform with a majority. Of course, when you have freedom of speech and expression, when you have freedom to debate and discuss, of course you're not going to conform with majority, because you will debate, discuss only when you are satisfied that yes, this opinion is right or this opinion is wrong. If it is right, nothing like it, go ahead, continue with that opinion. But if you're proven wrong, then you can take corrective measures to change your opinion and adapt to the right opinion. So you are not conforming with the majority just for the sake of confirmation. You are doing it because you are convinced that the decision or the belief system of that number of people is right. All right. That's why freedom of speech and expression is very important. But Mill did not give freedom of speech and expression and this liberty to children, because children are not yet developed. Reason is not yet developed in them. Mentally handicapped people. I spoke about this yesterday also. That those people do not have the, what you can say, the understanding, the reasoning to debate, to discuss, to understand or to differentiate right from wrong. All right. So all of this speech and expression can only be given to mature people. Who are mature people? Simplistically meaning educated people. So that's the reason why you see, like Plato, like Socrates, like Aristotle, J.S. Mill is also elitist. All right. He's not giving freedom of speech and expression to everybody. He's speaking about education. He's speaking about people mature enough to understand the difference of opinions, people matured enough, educated enough to debate, discuss, and get involved in dialectics, and then coming to a educated and informed decision. So that liberty of freedom of speech and expression is not given to children, mentally handicapped, and the barbarians. All right. Only educated people and advanced civilizations could enjoy liberty, not vice versa. So, who are educated people? So called mature people. Who are advanced civilization as against the barbarians. All right. So, here, advanced civilizations generally mean your Western democracies. Okay, Western democracies. So, he cautioned against sacrifice of liberty for making a state strong, as it would be counterproductive, as state is made up of people who compose it. I told you, I had given you an example. Look at the people in India. Look at the people in United States of America. Why do we have democracies which are thriving, which are doing good, which have survived for such a long period of time? Because certain freedoms, fundamental rights have been given to the people. All right. There's certain liberties that you enjoy, rights that you enjoy. All right. That's the reason why people are happy. People have liberty. People have freedom. And that's why they are happy staying in the United States of America. They are happy staying in France. They're happy staying in India, as opposed to people staying in Saudi Arabia or North Korea. All right. Or for example, Myanmar now. All right. There are now, they do not have those particular freedoms that are enjoyed so easily by people of India, by people of United States of America, by people of France, by people of United Kingdom, etc. So that's the reason why he says, don't make a very strong state. Liberty, certain freedoms, certain rights have to be given to the citizens, because only when certain freedoms are given to the citizens, we are giving them a scope for self-development. We are giving them a scope to develop their capabilities, capacity, abilities to the best possible scenario. And when a person grows in stature, the state also grows in stature. All right. That's why state is made up of people who compose it. State is made up of people who compose it. So he is against strong state. He is in favor of giving liberty to people, because it is the people who compose a state. Same concept of your Plato. State is individual written large. It is the people who make a state. All right. Hence his quote, which I've already told you yesterday also. No state becomes great by dwarfing its own men. In order that that they may be more docile elements in his hands, even for beneficial purposes, will find that with small men, no great things can be accomplished. That's what I told you. If you do not give them liberty, if you do not give them freedom, people are not going to develop themselves. And if they do not develop themselves, and if they become docile, if they are stunted, stunted growth of people is going to result in stunted growth of the state also. So the state which gives more liberty, people will grow, state will grow. If you stun the people, state also will be stunted. All right, and no great developments will take place. So basically, if they ever ask you about this majority quote, you just have to tell them related to freedom of speech and expression. That's exactly what they're looking forward to. They just want you to know which tenet of JS Mill can be applicable to this quote. The moment you write this, the answer per person correcting your answer will understand, okay, this person has understood JS Mill clearly. While I have told you, when you talk about empty liberty, you have to talk about self-regarding actions, other regarding actions. They are related to your right of conduct or liberty of conduct. While this quote, majority isn't right in silencing minority, silencing word comes, you have to understand it's talking about liberty of speech and expression. And the same answer, whatever I've written in the slide is enough. That will cover your answer for it. Okay, another very important question generally asked. Mill is a reluctant Democrat. Okay, he is a supporter of freedom of speech and expression. Okay, and liberty of conduct also, which can be exercised only in democracy. Authoritarian states or totalitarian states wherein everything is controlled or there is an authority controlling aspect of your life, they do not give you freedoms. All right, they do not give you freedoms. So freedom of speech and expression can only be exercised in democracy. Okay, this is what J.S. Mill believed. But he was reluctant to introduce democracy anywhere and anytime, as it is inappropriate form of government for barbarians. Generally, not the people who are Western societies, okay, were considered to be barbarians by J.S. Mill. I told you, J.S. Mill is an elitist, just like your Plato and Aristotle. So if you're writing Plato and Aristotle, you can definitely say even J.S. Mill is elitist. While you're writing J.S. Mill, you can tell them, yes, Aristotle and Plato are elitist. Interlinkages of your syllabus. All right. So it shows that you know your syllabus very well. All right. Okay, let's come back to the topic. So he is reluctant to introduce democracy anywhere and anytime, as it is inappropriate government for barbarians. Because for democracy to survive, he believes education is important. For education, because then only you'll become mature, only then can you use concept of speech and expressions properly. All right. So democracy, according to J.S. Mill, wasn't a free gift, but people fought for it for centuries. Hence, it can't be introduced in societies where people lack democratic culture. Hence, it will be a false democracy. Simple example, India. All right. We have seen Indian history. You have ancient India. All right. Then you have the medieval India, Delhi Sultanate, Mughal Empire. Then you have modern India. Then you have Battle of Plassey, 1757, Battle of Buxar, 1764. Then you see slowly, then there comes 1857, our first war of independence. Then the transfer of power happens. We come under the British rule. All right, we become a proper colony. Then we fight an entire freedom struggle till 1947, when we become independent. Then we get our own constituent assembly, frame our constitution, and tell ourselves we are sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, democracy. All right. So we have fought for it for centuries. That's exactly what J.S. Mill is saying. J.S. Mill was also a member of East India Company. All right. So he was basically, East India Company was the first part to come into India only for profits and economic trade. Then they realized India is a divided territory, and then we fell under political control of the Britishers. So that's the same thing that he's talking about, that people have fought for democracy for centuries. It cannot be introduced in societies which lack democratic culture, because otherwise it will be a false democracy. In India, democracy has survived. Of course, we had a little bit bad patch from 75 to 77 when emergency was imposed, but we still came back and democracy still continues. That's exactly what J.S. Mill is talking here. That democracy, for democracy, people have fought very hard for it. All right. It's not a gift to be given. It is something that people have to fight for. And he was afraid that democracy should not get converted into tyranny of majority. Class, if you remember, I want to explain this concept with the concept of what fear Muhammad Ali Jinnah had. That Muhammad Ali Jinnah felt that, let's look, India, once we become independent, India being a majority Hindu state may lead to dominance of majority and subjugation of minorities, that is the Muslims. So that was the major fear that Jinnah had. That led to that entire concept of two states based on two religions. That's what we call as two nation theories. So basically, J.S. Mill also had the same fear that democracy may get converted into tyranny of majority, not always basis of religion, on basis of capitalist class or the worker class. It can be rich class versus the poor class. It can lead to tyranny of majority. In India, that concept was regarding religion. In some another country, depending upon that composition of that particular country, they may have their own concept of majority. So J.S. Mill was afraid that democracy should not get converted into rule of majority. Thus, he suggested certain reforms, and that's the reason why he's called as a reluctant Democrat. First was weighted voting. All can be given only one vote, but educated and property people should be given more than one vote. He believed one man, one vote would only lead to government of least educated class, the manual workers. I already told you he's an elitist. His biggest fear was uneducated class and manual workers becoming a part of government. So that's the reason why he gave weighted voting. To whom? To educated class. Why? Again, the concept of Plato. If you have education, you're good enough. Like Aristotle said, if you're educated, you should be given citizenship. So education for even J.S. Mill is very important because educated people can think rationally, can make use of the concept of freedom of speech and expression, is what J.S. Mill felt. So educated people and propertied people. Why propertied people? Because they have something to lose. Okay, they have a fear of losing their property, fear of losing their riches. That's why these people will be more interested in political process compared to the poor people. So educated people and propertied people should be given more than one vote. That's the same concept of plural voting. Because one man, one vote will lead to a government of least educated class. See, simple. It's like a pyramid. Rich people, educated people are going to be the top half of the pyramid. Limited. All right. Majority people will be working class. They may not be educated, but they'll definitely be poor people. All right. So if I give one vote for one person, who is a majority? The manual laborers, the manual workers, the poor people. So it will become their government. It will not be the government of the propertied and educated class, because in a pyramid, the top is always less compared to the bottom. All right. So because of that, he says weighted voting is to be given. Second, he says give plural voting, singular, plural, one versus many. So give plural voting to educated people to balance lack of voting rights given to uneducated people. All right. He did not want to give right to vote to everybody. So he said one reason for not giving that right to vote to everybody was he was afraid a government of manual workers, uneducated people will be formed. All right. So that will lead to government of barbarians. So he says, no, no, no. Rather than doing that, let's give plural voting. Educated people should be given more right to vote. So he's definitely not talking about equality. All right. He's not talking about equality. He is talking about weighted voting, plural voting to be given to educated people so that because they have education, they have reason, they have freedom of speech and expression, they can discuss, they can deliberate and come to a better conclusion. All right. So plural voting should be given to educated people to counterbalance lack of voting rights given to uneducated people. Okay. Open ballot. So that there is no way that any kind of influence will be seen on the person casting vote. So it has to be open ballot. It has to be performed under the eye and criticism of the public. Okay. Next, proportional representation. Class, when I teach you Indian Constitution, especially your president, I will be teaching you proportional representation by single transferable vote in detail. All right. But you don't have to go into that detail because you're studying only political theory. So here, proportional representation simplistically means all the groups of the society have to have proportional representation. All right. So see the word proportional representation. So all the groups, all the people, they should have their representatives because everybody cannot have direct democracy. All right. Look at India. Can you have a direct democracy? No, it's impossible. That's why we have representative democracies. You go, you elect your representative, he goes to the Lok Sabha or he goes to the Legislative Assembly, makes decisions for you. So proportional representation is basically to avoid tyranny of majority and absolutism, because proportional representation, all groups will be represented and that representation will be proportional to their strength. Okay, proportional to their strength. So why is he called a reluctant democrat? He is not giving right to democracy to everybody. He says democracy has to be something that you have fought for. It is not a kind of a government for barbarians. Uneducated, immature people cannot deal with democracy. That will be a false democracy. So he says democracy should not get converted into tyranny of majority. And majority people are always the lower half of your pyramid, the majority. So that will be poor, uneducated, working class, manual laborers. So that is his biggest fear. That's why he says that certain reforms are required. Weighted voting should be given. Plural voting should be given. More than one vote should be given to educated class people, because see, manual workers are more in number, educated people are less in number, so they should be given plural voting to counter one man one vote of manual workers. That's why voting is given to educated people. Then he says it should be open ballot, no secret ballots, whatever it is in the public eye. All right. So there is no undue influence, there is no coercion, there is no force for anybody to vote for a particular person or particular group. All right. Proportional representation, meaning all the groups should have proportional representation. Why? Because worker class being the majority, if I give one vote to one person, their votes will definitely be more than the educated and propertied class. Concept of pyramid. All right. So that's the reason why he says proportional representation is required, so to avoid tyranny of majority as well as absolutism. All right. Next, strengthening of upper house. This is called as the bicameral legislature. India has a bicameral legislature. In the very first lecture, I had told you, introductory lecture, that Indian parliament is three components: the president, the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha. Okay, Lok Sabha is considered to be the lower house, Rajya Sabha is the council of states, all right, and the president. All three of them together make India's parliament. So strengthening the upper house. For UK, it is House of Lords. Okay, for United States of America, it is the Senate. All right, so this is called as bicameral. One is unicameral legislature. Bi means two legislatures. One is the lower house, all right, the popular house. Another one is the upper house. So in India, Rajya Sabha or Council of State is the upper house. In United Kingdom, House of Lords is the upper house. In United States of America, it is Senate, which is the upper house. All right. So strengthening the upper house because he preferred aristocratic elements. See, elitism again. He can't be a Democrat if he's being so elitist about everything. That only educated people should have this, only matured people should have this, only property people should have this voting, uneducated people should not have this. So he believes in democracy. He loves the concept of liberty, but he is not in favor of giving it to everybody. All right. So because of that, he was also afraid that upper house will also be filled with uneducated people. So he said, no, 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 let's not do that. Upper house, let it be aristocratic elements which will dominate, because House of Commons, the lower house, will be dominated generally by manual way laborers because of one man, one vote, because they are more in population compared to the propertied class and compared to the educated class. So he said, at least let's keep the upper house only to aristocratic elements, educated elements, rich people, moneyed people, propertied class, so that proper representation happens. So if lower house is being represented by workers and manual laborers, at least the upper house will counterbalance it with the propertied class as well as the educated class. So that's why he's a reluctant Democrat, because he believes in weighted voting, plural voting, open ballot, proportional representation, and strengthening upper house. All right. Plus, He does not give right to vote to everybody. He says persons who are unable to pay local taxes, people who are dependent on public welfare schemes, legally bankrupt, morally deviant people should be disqualified from voting. Unable to pay local taxes meaning you don't have money, you're not earning very well, that means you're poor. All right. Dependent on public welfare schemes, generally in United Kingdom you have public welfare schemes, so if you do not have a job, if you're unemployed, the state gives you certain money to maintain your lifestyle or to maintain your life, okay, subsistence. So the ones who cannot pay local taxes or who are dependent on public welfare schemes, okay, legally bankrupt. In India, we call them insolvent. Okay, your constitution calls them insolvent, bankrupt people who do not have money. Once I do not have money, I am not bothered about who the government is or who forms the government. All right. So bankruptcy means you do not show any interest in whatever is happening in the state. So that's the reason why legally bankrupt and morally deviant. What is morally deviant? Drunkards. Okay. So people who cannot think right, okay, should not be given voting rights. So again, he's showing that democracy and rights are not supposed to be given to everybody. But he stood for equal voting rights irrespective of color and sex. J.S. Mill, his greatest contribution apart from liberty has been his belief that women also need to be treated as equal sex compared to the men. All right. He believed that women should enjoy right to equal voting. See, he's giving right to equal voting to women also. Second, equal opportunities and equal opportunities in employment and education has to be given to women. They also should be given right to develop themselves, to participate in politics if they want to. Don't just limit them to child rearing and childbearing practices. All right. So his contribution is regarding the fact that he believed that women also need to be treated equal to men. All right. They should be given equal voting rights, equality of opportunities in education, and equalities of opportunities in employment also. So that's one of the very positive point of J.S. Mill, that even if he may be a reluctant Democrat, but he is not talking about racism and he is not talking about sexism. All right, he's against both of it. All right, his justification of granting equal voting rights to all was that compulsorily primary education was necessary and would make individuals wise and compete. Okay, and compete and complete. They can compete with the best of the people because they're educated. At least they have the basic reasoning. All right. And second, they can also make opportunities for themselves, and from working class even they can become the propertied class if they can use that knowledge for better use. All right. So he is a Democrat because he believes that democracy makes men happier and better. But people develop reason and judgment through political participation. The same concept, political participation, all right, elitism, you've seen in Aristotle also. That's the reason why Aristotle still believes let's keep slavery, because master should concentrate on political process. Same similar concept you see here. All right, same concept you see here, that political participation should be necessary. If you are participating in political processes, only then even J.S. Mill, like Aristotle says, you can be given political rights. So equal voting rights, universal adult franchise. Universal adult franchise simplistically means right to vote. Okay. Democracy, liberty should only be conferred on people who had a character of self-control. So you are not morally deviant. All right. So who have character of self-control and ability and interest. Ability comes from education. Interest is inherent in doing something for public good. Doing something for public good, meaning political participation. All right. So he believed in representative democracy, but laid down many conditions like citizens have to be active and self-helping character and should show their ability and willingness to preserve institutions of representative democracy. Even if it is representatives, even if I'm not going to directly participate in the process of democracy, I'm going to vote. All right. I'm going to vote. And if I'm voting as an educated person, that is the way I'm going to show that yes, I am interested in political process. I'm interested in whatever is happening in the state. I'm interested in knowing who's going to come and rule over me. So I have an ability, I have an interest in doing public good and in acting for public good. That means for political process, political participation, for establishing a good government. But like I told you, he says democracy is not for everybody. He tells you certain reforms that are required. He tells you that listen, only when you are actively participant in politics, only when you have the ability, only when you're taking interest in political participation, shall you be given voting rights. All right. That's the reason why he is called as a reluctant democrat. All right. So, conclusion with this, we are ending J.S. Mill. He's a transitional thinker, but well respected for his focus on liberty. He championed positive liberty as it was linked to development of individuals and their ability to gain fulfillment and self-realization. So, I've already told you what is positive liberty. Positive liberty, simplistically meaning giving you freedom to develop yourself for self-realization, etc. All right. And what is negative liberty? Negative liberty simplistically means a negative role of a state. When I'm telling a state, do not interfere in their economic activities, do not interfere in the private activities. So when I give you a negative role to a state, not interfering, non-intervention, that is negative liberty concept. Positive is when I'm giving a positive role to a state. So what is a positive role? I'm saying, yes, J.S. Mill said, go tax the rich people, tax the people who are rich so that you can give the money to the weaker section. So you're playing a proactive role. The state is giving a proactive role. It's playing a proactive role wherein it is taking care of the weaker sections also. So state has a proactive role, a positive role, a welfare role. All right. With this, we have finished your J.S. Mill. Class, any questions about J.S. Mill? Do you have any questions about J.S. Mill? Or otherwise, I want to continue with Hannah Arendt. Akansha, I already told you the people who are not educated, who are not matured enough, are considered to be barbarians. Shall I continue with Hannah Arendt? I want to do your Karl Marx and Antonio Gramsci together. All right. Siddesh, he was confused. Siddesh, he was not confused. He was inconsistent because the time that he belonged to, classical liberalism was just getting transformed into modern liberalism. All right. That's the reason why he's neither here, neither there. That's why the first thing I told you when I started with J.S. Mill was he's a transitional thinker. All right. So because of that, he was caught in that quandary, neither classical, neither modern. So because of that, it is inconsistent. All right. Okay. I think I've answered all your questions here. Class, I have already, like I'm repeating again, I have again put your books, the syllabus, okay, the syllabus and the books that are required for you to refer to, OP, GOPA, etc. The entire list, I put it again. Please go through it and start buying those books. It is required. All right. Second, yesterday, some people of you had left. I won't blame you. It was after 2 o'clock. So I'm not blaming you at all. But if you've missed, I have told them that J.S. Mill, rather than going through Shubhra Ranjan notes, all right, study it from OP Goba under chapter 10, diverse perspective of state. All right. In that, there is welfare state perspective. J.S. Mill is dealt with there. All right. Plus liberal theory, the social contract theory that I taught you, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, only for liberal theory, is also covered. So I've put those pages from 175 to 209. Please read them. They'll make you understand the liberal theory of state very easily. They'll make you understand welfare theory of the state also very clearly. Plus, you'll understand social contract thinkers and J.S. Mill. Okay. So just some pages and 4 topics of yours get covered. All right. I think I have one new message. 1 second. Akansha, okay, you have not attended yesterday's lecture. How may I be able to get? What do you want, Akansha? I did not understand your question. Akansha, if you can hear me, I've not understood your question. If you want, you can just ask me. You can unmute your mic. Just ask me if you want.
Ma'am, I have not attended yesterday's lecture just because I have some urgency.
Okay.
So how may I get the lecture of JS
Uh,
ma'am?
don't worry. I will send you the PPT will be shared with you, no? So you can read the PPT. All right. Any which way. And if you have any doubts, then you can feel free to contact me. All right. I'll explain to you. But
Okay,
PPT
ma'am.
is self-explanatory, Akansha, because I have covered almost everything in JSML. I've taken all the codes and everything. So if you have any problems, contact me. I'll discuss it with you. Okay. But it is generally
Okay.
self-explanatory. So I don't think you'll have any problems with it. All right.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, but
Yes,
if you
ma'am.
have any questions, I'm always here available for you. All right.
Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
so now can I start
Yes,
with
ma'am.
Hannah Arendt? Class, can I start with Hannah Arendt now? It is smaller compared to other thinkers. All right. Okay. Okay. Now, class, why am I doing Hannah Arendt with you? Because even Hannah Arendt is going to speak about the same concepts of freedom of speech and political participation, active participation in politics. So it becomes easier for you to remember. Plus, bigger thing is, I want to do your Karl Marx and Antonio Gramsci together because Antonio Gramsci is as a result of Karl Marx. So that way, what happens is you remember the linkages, all right, and that way it becomes easier for you to study. So smart study is required more than hard work. All right. So that it becomes easier for you to understand. All right. And Hannah Arendt is a little difficult to understand. All right. Like what's this said, confused. Hannah Arendt is more confused than so-called J.S. Mill. All right, because she's writing to herself. All right. So only for J.S. Mill and Hannah Arendt, I'm speaking again. Okay, I'm repeating it again and again. Only for Hannah Arendt and J.S. Mill, whatever I have put in the slides, my PPT is enough. All right. Apart from that, only Opigopa for JS Mill. You don't need to do anything more because I've put in everything in the slides for Hannah Arendt and JS Mill only. Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, as well as your Hobbes, Locke. You please have to study Sushila Ramaswamy. All right. That reference book has to be referred to because it is very important. JS Mill, I have done the hard work for you. Only read through whatever is given in the slides, as well as most important, whatever I've told you from Goba. Pages have written it down in the chat box. Okay. Now, if you see Hannah Arendt, 1906 to 1975. So she belongs to the 20th century. She belongs to the 20th century. All right. She was born in Germany and was a German Jew. So she suffered at the hands of Hitler. All of us are aware about Nazism, right? That was basically Hitler, who was present in Germany, which finally led to the Second World War. All right. And you know, after Second World War, what happened? Cold War started. All right. So she was a German Jew and finally took refuge in US because all of us know the anti-Semitism, anti-Jew sentiment prevalent in Germany. All right, the Holocaust and the mass killing, genocide of the Jews. That's the reason why she took refuge in United States of America. Okay, because she was a Jew. She was a leading thinker of the 20th century and amongst our thinkers, first female thinker that we are going to be studying in your political science because all of them are males. Only Hannah Arendt is a female thinker that we are studying in your political science syllabus. Okay, she is a leading thinker of the 20th century and believes in thinking without barriers. All right. See, her writing is for herself. She's not writing it for you and me to understand. All right. So because of that, her thinking is thinking without barriers. So she gives her own interpretation to the words. So power has been interpreted by her in her own context. All right. That's why she does not believe in any grand theories or universal values. So it is very difficult to put her in a particular school of thought. Neither can we call her liberal nor socialist, nothing. All right. Because she does not believe in grand theories. She believes in thinking without barriers. All right. Her works are very important, all of them, on totalitarianism, human condition, on revolution, Eichmann in Jerusalem, and on violence. Okay, all of these are very important works. wherever all those tenets come, I've written down it belongs to which book. See, like hierarchy of actions, I've written down on human conditions. So you'll remember, if anybody asks about hierarchy of actions, you know which book it belongs to. Okay. Now, her book called On Human Condition is the most influential work and deals with political action and participatory politics. She is like J.S. Mill. Okay, like Aristotle, she says political participation is very important. If you're participating in politics, only then you can talk about rights, etc. Otherwise, do not talk about rights, liberties, etc. So they all, Aristotle as well as J.S. Mill as well as Hannah Arendt, all give importance to political participation. All right. Her entire concept of power is based on this concept of political participation of people. Okay, she believes that there are two kinds of action. Please understand, she is thinking to herself, she's talking to herself, she's writing to herself. Okay, so this is for her own understanding, which we have to understand here. All right, so it's going to be a little complicated, but I will try to explain it to you as succinctly as possible. Okay, so she says that there are two kinds of actions. This actions is written in her book on human conditions. All right, she says there is one action that is vita activa and there is vita contemplativa. So, what is contemplativa? Contemplation, just thinking, while activa means doing. All right. So, she believes more in action. She says, do something rather than just thinking. All right. In all the thinkers that I have taught you till now, Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Locke, J.S. Mill, and now Hannah Arendt, she says action is more important, okay, rather than just contemplation. So she is criticizing Plato. She said Plato was just a thinker. Okay, he was only thinking about what ought to be. Plato was affected by Socrates' death. Fine. Second, Plato was not happy with democracy. He called it rule of ignorant. So because of that, she said he only concentrates on thinking. This should be the education system. This is what good system of justice will look like. This is what community of family and community of property will look like. She's like, he's only thinking. He's not making any action. He's not acting. He's not taking any action to bring that thinking into reality. So she criticizes Plato, saying he's just a thinker. But she praised Karl Marx, who focused on action rather than just contemplation. When I teach you Karl Marx, the class struggle, the concept of revolution, you'll understand. He's actually talking about revolution, he's talking about class struggle. All right. So that's why she criticizes Plato, saying he's just a thinker, but praises Karl Marx for focus on action. Karl Marx is also equally impractical. All right. But again, I told you, Hannah Arendt is writing to herself. So it is her own thoughts. So in her own thoughts, Plato is just a thinker, but Karl Marx is good because he's focusing on action. Whether he is or he is not a question to debate here. All right. She thinks that. So we have to write that. So there are two actions, vita activa, vita contemplativa. What is important? Action is more important than just thinking. That's what we say, no? Do rather than just think, act rather than just think. That's exactly what she is talking about. All right. Now, she comes up with a concept of hierarchy of actions. Again, it is given in the book on human conditions because it's the most important book of hers. All right. So, in hierarchy of actions, she has divided or spoken about three concepts. She says labor, work, and action. All three of them are different. See, labor is also working, work is also doing something, all right, not just thinking, but doing something. When you're physically doing something, action is also when you're physically doing something. But she says there is a difference. There is a difference. According to Hannah Arendt, labor is what one does to survive. So workers working in the factory for 8 hours, okay, putting in their manual effort is what they do for survival, for wages, for salary. So she says what one does only for survival or for earning the means of livelihood is nothing but your labor. All right. So labor is what one does. So, labor is what one does for survival or for earning the means of livelihood is nothing but your labor. All right. So, she says, what one does only for survival or for earning the means of livelihood is nothing but your labor. All right. So, labor is what one does only for survival or for earning the means of livelihood is nothing but your labor. Labor means what one has to do to survive. What one has to do to survive. All right, so you're working for your wages, working for your salary is the concept of labor. But she accepts it because labor is action. Labor is action. Next is work. For her, work reflects the nature of a person. It is what person does, what gives him pleasure. So what gives him pleasure is work. What gives him money or what gives him livelihood is labor. So she says, but more than labor and more than work, what is important is action. Okay, because man is a politicon. She says man is a politicon. So more than labor, more than work, action is more important because man is a politicon. That means action, doing something in the political field is more important. See, political participation. Okay, so what is more important? Labor is what you do for surviving, what you do for earning means of livelihood. That means economics. Work is what you do for your own pleasure, what you like. Okay, that reflects the nature of a person. All right, but she says action, which is the most important, is what you do in the political field. It is action means political participation. Okay, class, have you understood till now? Have you understood till now? This is just the introduction of hers. Okay, fine. I will keep on asking you because she is confusing thinker. All right. Okay. So now you told me you have understood this. Let's go to next part. Very important. Her views on totalitarianism. Okay. Totalitarianism is basically a type of government or a form of government wherein state controls your private as well as public sphere. So your social, cultural, economic, political, every field is under the total control of a authority of a state. That's why it is called as totalitarianism. There is nothing called as public sphere and private sphere. Everything is under the control of a state. All right. So she is speaking about totalitarianism. Her book, Origin of Totalitarianism, deals with her views on totalitarianism. All right. Now, please understand, totalitarianism is given so much of importance by Hannah Arendt because first she was a German Jew. So she had seen the atrocities that Adolf Hitler committed against the Jews in Germany for whatever reasons. All right. So because of Nazism, okay, because of Nazism that was present, okay, as well as Stalinism that she was seeing in Russia, she gave her views on totalitarianism. She says that totalitarianism has broken continuity of history and rendered most of our moral and political categories meaningless. What happened? First World War happened. Germany lost. Italy lost. Okay. Treaty of Versailles was very humiliating for these countries, which led to rise of Mussolini. Mussolini, you're going to study under fascism. Okay, we are studying fascism under ideologies. So I'll be teaching you Mussolini, but we're not studying Adolf Hitler, okay, in detail. So she said, look, because of because of this rise of totalitarianism, Nazism, then you talk about Stalinism, our continuity of history, liberal democracy, classical liberalism has been broken. Okay, our morals and political categories have become meaningless because everything is controlled by state. Hitler controlled everything, Stalin controlled everything. So totalitarian states were coming up, and because of that our history as well as the political categories became meaningless. Okay, she says that this totalitarianism is extremely exploitative. It is extremely exploitative and doesn't give freedom to its people. Of course, it will not give freedom to its people. That's why the term is totalitarianism. See, I am controlling your public as well as your private sphere of life. So, no freedom is given to the people. All the ideas, whatever goals, everything is determined by the state itself. All right. Such a state is maintained by use of violence, terror, and ideology and kills critical thinking. Violence is an end in itself. For example, whatever happened whatever happened under Nazism, okay, anti-Semitism, killing of Jews, Holocaust, mass genocide, So how does a totalitarian state maintain itself? Hannah Arendt says through violence, through terror, through an ideology. What was an ideology of Nazism? Nazism's ideology was racial superiority. Hitler believed that Germans were racially superior to the Jews and to other people. So this was an ideology. So she says totalitarian states or totalitarianism is basically maintained by violence and by an ideology. I have already told you. Ideology is just a set of ideas that particular group of people believe them to be true. They cannot be verified. It is a matter of faith. Okay, when I was teaching you liberalism, last lecture, last weekend, I told you that ideology is generally a belief system. It cannot be verified. It is a set of ideas held to be true by certain people upholding those ideas. Okay, so there is no verifiability. And it kills critical thinking. Why critical thinking? You cannot question. You do not have the freedom of speech and expression. You do not have the freedom of dialectics of Socrates, of Plato, or of J.S. Mill. Whatever the state tells you, you have to abide by it. That is a feature of totalitarian state. All right. But she distinguishes between authoritarianism and totalitarianism. It's her interpretation that authoritarianism is filled with responsibilities. Totalitarianism is one without responsibilities. All right. So what is authoritarian? Authoritarian is basically a set of people, a regime, or a group of people, or one person, or a book is considered to be a source of authority, and you have to abide by that. Okay, so either a group of people, or a regime, or one person, or a religious book is a source of authority, and that book has to be abided by, it has to be obeyed. But that does not control everything of your life. It does not control everything of your life. That when everything of your life, public as well as private sphere, is totally controlled by the state, it's totalitarianism. So Hannah Arendt says authoritarianism is one which is responsible. Totalitarianism is one which is without responsibility, because it only deals with violence, it only deals with ideology, does not give you freedom, it kills critical thinking. All right. Next, modernity and capitalism gave rise to totalitarianism. This is Hannah Arendt's understanding of it. Okay, so she has analyzed totalitarianism, rise of totalitarianism, and she blames it on modernity and capitalism. I've told you what is capitalism. The concept of your classical liberalism, laissez-faire economy, open market economy. All right of people to have private property. I've given you open market, make a life for your own self. If you're very successful, you're rich, you have private property, you have means of production, you are the dominant class. That is capitalism. So she says capitalism and modernity gave rise to totalitarianism. How? Because of capitalism, what happened? Few people became economically rich. All right, they had large industries. Now once large industries were set up, they needed raw materials. Now where will you get a raw materials? They started colonialization. The search for new markets led to imperialism, colonialism, okay, as well as racialism. So what happened? Because large industries were set up, they needed raw materials. They started this concept of finding new markets. How do you find new markets? In another new countries. So started the concept of colonialism. Okay, India faced that. You remember our Indian railways was started just because the cotton from United Provinces had to be brought to either Arabian Sea ports or the ports on Bay of Bengal, so that naval ships could take them to UK, so that finished products could be created. So India has seen all of this. All right. So creation and search for new markets under capitalism gave rise to imperialism or colonialism, whatever you want to call it as. Okay. And imperialism also led to racialism. All right. Because for example, in India, UK considered themselves racially superior to India, superior themselves to Indians. All right. That's why they became the colonial masters, and Indians were the colonial country, because we were so called inferior to the colonial masters, racially inferior to the colonial masters. So she said modernity is what gives rise to mass production, to new technology. Who owns this new technology? The rich people, the capitalist class who have means of production. But more large scale industry, more demand for raw materials. Countries cannot always be self sufficient, so start searching for new markets. New markets search leads to imperialism. In imperialism, countries start producing more Class, can you hear me? Class, can you hear me? Okay. Thanks, Janvi. Thanks, Akansha. Thanks, Aditya. Okay. Okay, let's continue before this goes off again. I don't know. My internet connection is fine. I don't know why this problem is coming up. Any which ways, let's not waste time. So, what I was telling you, that modernity and capitalism, according to Hannah Arendt, gave rise to imperialism, which finally sowed seeds even for racialism. All right. Expansionism of capitalism is responsible for war amongst nations. Everybody wanted to have as many colonies as possible so that they could get raw materials, they could use them, they could produce and use them in their large scale industries, make finished products, dump them in the new markets as well as in the other countries. So, because of this, expansionism of capitalism led to war amongst nations. Okay, she holds that economic crisis and destruction of stable context of social lives during interwar period created conditions for giving rise to totalitarianism. So what happened? Modernity led to creation of new innovation of new technology. This new technology was adopted by the capitalist class. All right. So now people were not required because you already had machines. But even with machines, you require raw materials like cotton, etc. Those all countries cannot be self-sufficient. So you needed new markets. So people started searching for new markets. This new market search led to something called as imperialism, or what we call as colonialism. But because of colonialism, offshoot called racialism also started. All right. Now what happened? Because of this capitalism, every country wanted to find new markets. There are only limited number of countries in the world. How many new markets are you going to find? So it led to fight between capitalist economies. It led to wars. And because of this wars, who suffered? The developing countries, the underdeveloped countries, the poor countries, the new markets, whom who were imperialized or who were colonialized by these capitalist countries started facing problems. Their social life was disrupted. India faced it. We were going happily till Mughal Empire. Our lives were absolutely devastated once we came under the control of Britishers. All right. Same thing. That stable context of social lives were disrupted during the interwar period. Okay. And this is the reason why insecurity started getting created amongst the new markets, amongst the poorer countries, amongst the developing countries, that listen, what shall we do? Because we are just vassals in the fight between these capitalist or developed countries. So because of this, they started becoming more and more insecure. They became more and more insecure about their order and security. They wanted peace. This is what even Hobbes said. Everybody wants peace. Nobody wants war. Everybody wants right to life. Everybody wants right to self-preservation. Same thing repeated here. That because of this constant wars for gaining more colonies under themselves, the third world countries started facing a lot of problems. They wanted a stable government. They wanted their normal social lives. And this vacuum was created, which was created because of this wars and capitalist class, was finally filled by certain leaders who manipulated them. Okay. This vacuum, this insecurity, this basic thing about having good normal social life, all right, this need for peace led to people, certain leaders manipulating these people, manipulating these third world countries, these developing countries, these poor nations, and gave way to totalitarianism. So simplistically, she is just putting up a story. She's saying modernity, new innovations led to capitalist class needing more markets. This new markets led to colonialism. Colonialism's offshoot was nothing but your racialism. Okay, racism started because colonial powers considered them to be superiors. But apart from that, what happened? It led to wars. It led to wars because these capitalist class in the European countries, in the Western countries, they were the capitalist class dominating. They needed new markets, but there are limited number of markets available. So it led to war amongst these developed countries. And who suffered because of this wars amongst developed countries dominated by capitalist class? People from countries like India suffered because we became the new markets. We were the poor countries who were exploited. So what happened? People from Asia, Africa, Latin America, who were made colonies, okay, who were made colonies by this capitalist class, wanted to find certain peace, wanted our social life back. All right, wanted our life to life as well as our security to be protected. And because of this insecurity, certain leaders manipulated their ways, okay, and established their rule in these third world countries, resulting in totalitarianism. It may not always be only for third world countries. Germany was not a third world country, but even Germany suffered. Democracy suffered. Germany was blamed for World War One. Treaty of Versailles was imposed on it. It was humiliating. It also led to rule by leaders who manipulated the people and led to the creation of Nazism. All right. So she is giving her own analogy. It may be right, it may be wrong. It is her thinking. All right. So finally, because of this, she is called as a Cold War intellectual for propagating American values. And she was one person who believed in active participation in politics and civic affairs can avoid totalitarianism. So, how can you avoid manipulation by leaders? Okay, or how can you avoid totalitarian regimes being set up in countries humiliated by war, or countries who are being used as new markets or colonies by so-called capitalist class? By becoming active participants in politics. Become aware of what is happening and participate in political process. So when you participate in political process, you will understand that no political leaders, neither a third country, okay, a capitalist country from some another continent, will dominate over you once people like you and me start participating in politics. So her concept of totalitarianism is basically based on critique of Nazism, okay, Nazism as well as Stalinism in Soviet Union. Second, she has seen the colonial powers and she has seen whatever was happening. All right, because of that, she's related modernity and capitalism to totalitarianism. How countries like Germany suffered because of wars like World War One and humiliation because of World War One, because it was blamed, as well as colonial countries like India, or colonial, what you can say, the countries who were a victim of colonial powers like United Kingdom, countries like India, as well as countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America. It created a problem, and that's the reason why leaders who could manipulate people, who could give them right to security, who could give them right to self-preservation, came up and led to totalitarianism. So she says only way to deal with totalitarianism under Nazism or by rule of capitalist class is through active participation in politics and civic affairs. Now comes her views on power. Okay, again, it is dealt with in Origin of Totalitarianism. Okay, she gives a very different concept of power, just like she has given a very different meaning to actions. She's differed or differentiated between labor, work, and action. Her concept of power is completely different from the concept of power I will be teaching you under your syllabus in paper 1 part A. We have power, legitimacy, hegemony, but her concept of power is very different. All right. She compared the concept of power with other related concepts like force, strength, and violence. So she says power is different from force. How is it different from force? See, I've underlined the word force. Force belongs to nature. We generally use the terminology force of nature. That person is a force of nature. So force is generally associated with nature. Cyclone, tsunami. All right, this is force of nature. All right, but power, she says, belongs to human. So force belongs to nature while power belongs to human. So there's a difference between force and power. Second, she says strength. Force belongs to nature, power belongs to humans. Strength is a characteristic of an individual. We generally say, now that person is very strong. That human being is very strong. Khali is very strong. So, strength is generally associated with an individual. We consider it to be a characteristic of an individual. Okay? But, so he can be strong or weak, but that is not power. Strength is a characteristic of an individual that tells you whether he is strong, weak, etc. So, physical attributes of a person, but that is not power. So, force belongs to nature, strength is a characteristic of an individual. Both of them, force and strength, differ from power. Violence is represented by state. She says violence. Remember totalitarianism? I told you, see here, violence. Totalitarianism is nothing but use of violence. So, same thing she's saying here, that violence is represented by the state, whereas power belongs to the society. Violence is based on force, while power is based on consent and togetherness. So, therefore, power is neither force because force belongs to nature, neither strength because strength belongs to an individual. It's a physical attribute. Neither violence because violence belongs to the state, while power belongs to the society. Power belongs to, the word she uses is public realm. Okay, public realm. Society or public realm means where people come together, where people come together and live peacefully. Okay, and they deliberate, discuss with each other. So it is peaceful discussions, peaceful deliberations. There is nothing force, there is no coercion, there is no force like state. In society, there is always consent and togetherness. Why consent? Because we come together because we want to. Okay, not because somebody is forcing us to. Why togetherness? Because public realm is about cohesiveness, about cooperation, about togetherness. So power belongs to society while violence belongs to state. Violence can be based on force, but power is based on consent and togetherness. So, simplistically put, there is a difference between force, strength, and violence and power. Power is in society, power is in consent, power is in togetherness. Heard the terminology united we stand, divided we fall? That's the concept she's using. That when you are united, when your consent is there, when you're together, peacefully, cohesively, there is a cohesion, there is cooperation, you are united. That is nothing but your public realm, as different from state, because state uses violence, it uses force, while society uses consent and togetherness. So she's saying power is so generous, meaning power is unique. It is based on action. See, I told you hierarchy of action. Action is nothing but political participation. Same thing she's talking here. What is power? Power, she says, is sui generis. It is unique. It is based on action, concerted action, meaning cohesive action, togetherness of people, and it is based on persuasion, ability to gain consent through discussion and debate. Class, again, that's why I'm teaching you J.S. Mill and Hannah Arendt together. Like your Plato, concept of dialectics, debate, discuss, logical reasoning. Same thing is freedom of speech and expression that is spoken about by J.S. Mill. Same is what Hannah Arendt is speaking about when she talks about power. That listen, power comes from action, doing something in political field. Second, she says power comes from persuasion. How do you persuade somebody? through talking through them, through discussions, through logical reasoning with them. So there is discussion and debate through which consent is created, because there is no violence, there is no force, there is no state. Okay, power is so generous. Power is when you act in concert. So for the first time, she's saying that listen, power is different from force, power is different from strength, power is different from violence, because violence is done by state. Power is violence is state related, but power is so generous. So that is sui generis, meaning it is unique. It is when we act in concert. Can you see? I've put it in bold. That's in inverted commas. All right. This word has to come in your answer. Power belongs to people who act in concert. Concert meaning in cohesion, through consent and through togetherness. How is consent created? Consent is created through persuasion. Persuasion is discuss, debate, then come to a logical conclusion about something. So power is collective. Power does not belong to individual according to Hannah Arendt. Power belongs when you are together. So when people come together, they experience power. Act in concert. So power is collective. Power is acting in concert. When people come together, they experience power. It is not a feature of an individual, but a characteristic of a community or a society. So when you act in concert, when you come together, united we stand, that concept comes up. Power is experience. Power belongs to public sphere. Power belongs to public sphere. Once you go to your own house, you become individual, you become independent. Power is gone. Power vanishes once people go to their private sphere. So I'll repeat again. She is giving her own interpretation of power. Okay? Her concept of power is different. She says her power is not force, power is not strength, power is not violence. Power is based in a society. Power is based when we act in concert. What is concert? When we come together. When we come together peacefully, because it is through consent, because everybody agrees with it. It is togetherness, it is cooperative. All right. And it is consent and togetherness because it is based on the concept of persuasion. It is based on discussions and debate. I am not forcing you. If I force you, that becomes violence. But power is when you yourself feel the need to come together and participate in politics. So what is power according to Hannah Arendt? According to Hannah Arendt, power is concert. When people come together, they experience power. So today, 14 of us are together. According to Hannah Arendt, we have power. The moment the lecture stops, you go back to your independent life, power vanishes. So currently we are in power because all 14 of us are together. All right. The moment this lecture ends, okay, we go back to our private sphere, power vanishes. That's what she says here. Power belongs to public sphere, vanishes once people go back to their private sphere. Therefore, she promoted active participation in politics. Traditionally, generally, all right, traditionally meaning generally, power is seen as a property of individuals with association to domination or coercion. Generally, what is power? Generally, okay, not Hannah Arendt's concept of power. Hannah Arendt says we're acting in concert. When you act in concert together, that is power. You go back to your public life, become independent, power vanishes. Generally, power is when I force you to do something against your will. For example, what I'm doing now. All right. You would rather want to enjoy your Sundays, but I'm making you sit here and listen to Hannah Arendt. I'm using my power over you. All right. So making you do something that you generally wouldn't want to do, but you're doing it. That is the concept of power that we generally understand, but not for Hannah Arendt. Okay. She says power is not a property of individual. Power is when you act in concert. Power is collective concept. When you come together, you have power. The moment you disperse, power vanishes. All right. Power isn't permanent and cannot be stored for future. It is a continuous exercise, meaning continuous engagement in civic life. So to keep power, you cannot store power. Can I make all of you only stand in a locality? Once you stand in locality, you have power. The moment you go back to your own house, power vanishes. So you cannot store it for the future. Power is now. Currently, when all of us are together in this current online lecture, we have power because 14 of us are together. The moment I told you we stop, the power vanishes, according to Hannah Arendt. So she says power cannot be stored for the future. Power is now. It is current. As of now, this moment when I'm speaking to you, we have power. All right. So it cannot be stored for in the future. If you want to continue the concept of power, you have to continuously engage. So next weekend, we'll again meet for political science lectures. We'll again be back in power. The moment weekend ends, the moment our lectures end, power vanishes. That is the concept of Hannah Arendt. So acting in concert, it cannot be stored for the future, and it can only be through continuous engagement in civic life. Civic meaning political life. All right. Power emerges automatically, does not depend upon military or bureaucracy. See, power, she says, is going to come automatically. It does not depend upon anything. You, why do you require bureaucracy or military? To force somebody. But she says that is not power, that is violence. If you require a military, if you require a bureaucracy, that is violence under state, not power. Power is people like you and me coming together, united we stand, we are power. State, military, bureaucracy is violence. All right. So she says power emerges automatically. The moment all of us come together, power. The moment we disperse, power is over. All right. So power is not dependent on military or bureaucracy, because then that will be violence, not power. Power is we the people, you and me. Political institutions are manifestations of power. All right. Therefore, concerted actions. Concerted means together. Cooperative actions, cohesive actions of the people are what creates political institutions. So simplistically meaning, why is Indian Parliament powerful according to Hannah Arendt? Because 550 members sitting in Lok Sabha are coming together. So they are acting in concert. So there is power. 250 members in Rajya Sabha maximum available or allowed. Okay. So 250 people coming together becomes power. That's why Indian Parliament is powerful. Getting it? That's her concept. So political institutions are manifestations of power. To generate continuous participation, only then they will be able to survive. So when you have those three sessions, monsoon session, the budget session, the monsoon session, the winter session, is when your Lok Sabha meets, it has power. The moment Lok Sabha is adjourned or adjourned sine die, okay, then what happens? Power vanishes. Collectively is power. Independently, power vanishes. So political institutions are nothing but manifestations of power. If you want institutions to survive, continuous engagement in political process is required, she says. Thus, she gives a very different explanation of power. Class, have you understood power? Have you understood the concept of power? Acting in concert. This one word you have to write. Nothing else. Have you understood the concept of power? Okay. Shall I just continue? Last 5 minutes are required. All right. Okay. So Hannah Arendt, totalitarianism, she's spoken about. All right. Then she has spoken about power. Power means acting in concert. It differs from force, strength, violence. Violence is related to state. While power, she says, is a collective concept. Power comes in only when you act in concert. All right. So when you are together, power comes. The moment you disperse, power vanishes. So she has given a very different concept of power. All right. Because she's talking to herself, she's writing to herself, and she believes in, see what I've written here, thinking without barriers. That's why she has her own interpretations to political terminologies. Okay. Now we're almost coming to the end of Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt is very small compared to all your thinkers. All right. Her views on revolution, again given in Origin of Totalitarianism. She praised American Revolution, all right, as a tale of freedom, as it promoted political freedom. as it promoted political freedom. Hannah Arendt believed in direct democracy. She wanted direct democracy more than representative democracy. But again, see, the countries are vast, plus populations are so many, is like so vast. It is not possible for each and every one of us to participate in political processes. All right, or to become a prime minister. But you've seen that Anil Kapoor's movie Nayak, wherein he becomes the chief minister for one day. In country like India, you cannot even become a chief minister for one day. If we talk about direct democracy, everybody participating will create chaos. Okay, but Hannah Arendt is thinking to herself, thinking without barriers. So she is the one who believes in concept of direct democracy, but it is not possible. Okay, it is impractical. But she praised the revolution in America as tale of freedom because it promoted political freedom. For her, politics and political participation is very important, so she praises American revolution. But same French revolution, okay, which took place from 1787 to 1789 to 1799 in France, led to Napoleon Bonaparte coming to power and dictatorship being created. Okay, she says it was a tale of necessity. Why? Because French Revolution did not give importance to political freedom, it gave importance to social and economic freedom. All right, this is her views. These are Hannah Arendt's views. You just have to write them. All right, so that's why she criticized French Revolution, because it gave importance to social and economic freedom, as against praising American Revolution because it upheld political freedom. But she was a little upset with America because they adopted representative democracy instead of direct democracy. But I told you, direct democracy is impractical. Currently, it is not possible. It will lead to chaos, it will lead to anarchy, state of nature like Hobbes. All right, but these are her views, so we have to take her views into consideration. So under her views of revolution, praised American revolution for political freedom, criticized French revolution as a tale of necessity because it only promised social and economic freedom, not political freedom. So according to her, American revolution gave rise to democracy. All right, 1787. All right, American revolution gave rise to democracy. Then views on freedom. She's again giving her own views. Okay, so according to her, there is a difference between liberty and freedom. Liberty means absence of tyranny. Tyranny, I have taught you when I taught you Aristotle. All right, that when a person, one particular person, rules for his own selfish interest, for power, for money, it is called as tyranny. So according to her, liberty means absence of tyranny. Okay, while freedom means realization of self. Self development scope is given by freedom, while liberty is negative because it is absence of somebody telling you what to do and what not to do. Okay, so according to her, absence of tyranny leads to freedom to enjoy your life, develop yourself to the fullest. That's why there is a difference between liberty and freedom. You have to rotate. All right, this is what she says, you have to rotate. It's her views. So I'll repeat again. What are her views on freedom? She distinguishes between liberty and freedom. Liberty is absence of tyranny. That means one person is not controlling you. All right, and freedom means it's more positive. Freedom means you have full freedom, full scope to develop yourself, to be the best possible person. So only when there is an absence of tyranny, when there is absence of dictatorship over you, absence of control over you, you have the freedom, you have the liberty to enjoy yourselves, to develop yourselves. So she says liberty leads to freedom. According to traditional political theory, freedom belongs to individual and his personal life. But according to Arendt, it belongs to social life. Like power belongs to social life, to society, to all of us acting together. Same way, freedom also belongs to society. All right? So she is one person who completely believes in collectivism instead of individualism of liberalism. She criticizes modernity. See, I've spoken to you about modernity here, that she said modernity and capitalism gave rise to totalitarianism. So, of course, she's going to criticize modernity. Where does she criticize modernity? We find her criticisms of modernity in her book on human conditions and other essays. Okay, paints a very negative concept of modernity. Class, modernity is criticized by Hannah Arendt as well as Gandhi. When I teach you Gandhi in Indian political thought, we'll also talk about criticisms of modernity. So if you want, when you're talking about criticism of modernity of Hannah Arendt, you can tell them even Gandhi has criticized him. Okay, criticize modernity. It shows interlinkage. So it will say, it will show that you understand your syllabus well. All right. She paints a negative concept of modernity. She, according to her, modernity means homogeneity, uniformity, and conformity. The same thing that J.S. Mill was talking about. J.S. Mill, that's why he said freedom is required. Freedom of speech and expression is required because you need to debate, you need to discuss. It should not be only what majority people say. If two people have a different opinion, you should respect those two people also. Debate, discuss, have logical reasoning. In that, you will come to know whether the 10 people are right and the two people are wrong, or two people are right. And then you can correct yourselves. All right. So, same like J.S. Mill, you see, she is also talking about uniformity and conformity is bad. Uniformity and conformity is bad. All right. So she says modernity restricts your freedom, diminishes the scope of civic life and individual freedom. Why? Because modernity basically means you must become unemployed. All right, creates problems. Okay, it creates problems. So that's the reason why it can create problems in your civic life and individual freedom. It can create problems of your livelihood. She again said that modernity leads to creation of a mass society, hence it restricts direct democracy. Mass people meaning majority people. So because it is really related to majority people, what will happen? Rule of majority will happen. That's exactly what J.S. Mill was afraid of. Okay, same thing she start talking about. And then direct democracy will not be possible. I told you, for her, direct democracy is very important. All right, but she doesn't understand that direct democracy is not always possible. Okay, because amount of population that countries have, direct democracy is impractical. Okay, then next she says that basically modernity leads to creation of elite domination, leads to manipulation of public opinion, because bureaucracy, representative institutions start dominating. You are all starting to become bureaucrats, all right? And she's criticizing bureaucracy. She says it will lead to bureaucracy, it will lead to representative institutions who will start dominating your belief systems, all right? And it will lead to manipulation of public opinion. Hence, it will limit the scope of direct democracy. Her views on modernity are shaped by her own experiences of totalitarianism. I told you, she suffered at the hands of Hitler. All right. So, because of that, she came up with this views of modernity. All right. Now, this is very important. Banality of evil. This is the last part. Okay. Then we are stopping. It's any which ways Hannah Arendt gets over. I don't know why this is showing. Okay, what do you mean by banality of evil? Banality means there is nothing original. There is nothing original. There is no novelty of this. What happened was, like I told you, under Nazism, lot of Jews were killed, lot of Jews were executed for whatever reasons. Okay, we're not getting into that. But there was this one person called Eichmann. Okay, Eichmann was one person who executed the Jews, and finally his trial was going on for the execution of Jews. And therein, during the trial, he said that, listen, I executed or I killed number of Jews, okay, because I did not have any personal hatred about the Jews or against the Jews. It was my duty. I am a member of Germany. I was a member of Germany. I was only following the laws. I was only following the commands. I had no personal hatred over Jews or against the Jews. Okay. I was just doing whatever was my line of duty. Whatever was commanded, I obeyed it. All right. So this is something when he said, okay, listen, I only did it for duty. I do not have any personal hatred for Jews. I was doing it only for promotion. It affected Hannah Arendt. Okay, and Hannah Arendt then comes up with this concept of banality, unoriginality of evil, saying, look, this is something, banality of evil comes when basically people start obeying anything. There is blind obedience, like Eichmann did. He did not question why the Jews are being executed. He did not question why he has to commit such a heinous crime. Nothing. He said it was my duty, I did it because I wanted promotion. That is something that Hannah Arendt questioned, that listen, how can you have nothing called as moral judgments? How can you have no reason? How can you only justify such cruelty, such violence, only on the ground that I was following or obeying a particular order? I was only doing it in the line of my duty. That is something that affected her, and that's why she says that when so much of violence happens without any particular reason, it is not just violence, it is banality. There is nothing originality remained, because everything is blind obedience, everything is about confirmation, everything is about abiding by whatever command is asking you to do. You are not using your own reason, you are not using your own moral judgments to decide whether the action is right or wrong. You are blindly following the command. And that is basically the concept of banality of evil. Okay, so to conclude, always conclude on a positive whenever you talk about political thinkers. So for Hannah Arendt, you have to say thoughts are not easy to understand and emerges as a complicated thinker. Okay, and was one of the greatest advocates of direct democracy. Character assassination nahi karna hai kisi bhi thinker ka. All right, that's why all the thinkers have given you conclusions. Okay, only those have to be written. Okay, I know we have overstepped our time limit. Anybody has any questions? I'll just tell you again, Hannah Arendt, whatever is put in the slides is enough. You don't need to study anything more, no reference work. J.S. Mill also, whatever I put in my slides, PPT presentation will be given to you. Only that much is required. Okay. And next, most important concept you have to remember, I've already written here, all right? I've already put here whatever you have to read from your OP Goba, the chapter number 10, Diverse Perspective on State. It will tell you social contract thinkers, Hobbes and Locke, as well as liberal theory of state. It's the same thing. Next, it will tell you classical liberalism and the thinkers plus J.S. Mill. Okay, so that can be covered. Okay, one second. Siddesh, if you want, you can, but that I'm leaving upon you. But I generally have covered everything. So if you want, you can just go through my notes, or if you want, you can even refer to Shubhra Ranjan notes. No problems at all. Decision is yours. I'm giving you complete autonomy to decide whatever you want to do. Akansha, I did not understand your question again. Modernity of Hannah Arendt. I told you she is speaking about modernity because it is her own views on modernity. So I did not understand your question, Akansha. Akansha, can you hear me? Akansha? Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. But that is her views on modernity where she is criticizing. So that's what her views on modernity are. She's not upholding it. She said modernity led to the problems of totalitarianism, Akansha. So of course she's criticizing it, no? She said no, capitalism and modernity were responsible for creation of totalitarianism. So she's definitely criticizing it. All right. Okay, class, we'll stop here. I'll see you next time. I'll be sharing the PPTs with Laksh Academy, so you can take it from them. All right. Have a nice weekend and do study. Plus, I've shared the books with you. Please buy those books. Please buy those books. All right. Okay, we'll stop here.